Aquarius, let me ask you something. Not the kind of question you answer out loud, but the kind you feel in your chest. Have you ever walked away from someone without a fight, without drama, without even saying goodbye? Not because you stopped caring, but because you finally realized caring was costing you your peace. Here's the part most people don't talk about. The moment you stop explaining yourself, stop waiting, stop trying to be understood, that's when they start to panic. Not because they suddenly love you more, but because your absence forces them to feel what you've been carrying all along. If this sounds familiar, type "I walked away" in the comments. Let this message find the people who are ready to hear it, and stay with me. Because in the next moments, you're about to discover why the message coming to you isn't about them at all. It's about the version of you that finally chose yourself. Aquarius, I want to sit with you here for a moment, not as someone giving advice, but as someone who understands what it feels like to reach that quiet edge inside yourself, where you realize you cannot keep carrying what was never yours to fix. There's a strange kind of sadness in the way you left. Not the kind that breaks loudly, not the kind that needs witnesses. It was more like setting something down after holding it for too long. Your hands were tired, your heart was tired, and for the first time, you didn't ask for permission to rest. You didn't leave because you were angry. Anger still has energy. Anger still believes something might change. You left because hope became heavy. That because explaining yourself started to feel like repeating the same sentence in different languages to someone who wasn't really listening. And maybe the hardest part wasn't losing them. It was realizing how much of yourself you had been slowly losing just to keep the connection alive. The way you softened your boundaries, the way you edited your needs, the way you learned to stay quiet about the things that mattered most to you. Aquarius, you're not someone who leaves easily. You stay longer than you should. You give more than you're supposed to. You keep believing in people even when they've shown you exactly who they are. So, when you finally walk away, it's never impulsive. It's the result of 1,000 silent moments where you chose them over yourself until one day you couldn't do it anymore. There is a kind of grief that comes with choosing yourself. Not because the decision is wrong, but because it forces you to face a truth you've been avoiding for a long time. That love alone is not enough. That effort without reciprocity becomes erosion. That being understanding should never mean being invisible. And I wonder, when you think about the moment you left, what did you actually feel first? Relief or guilt? Most people think walking away is about strength, but for you, it was about honesty. Honesty with your own limits. Honesty with your own emotional body. Honesty about how lonely you felt, even while being connected to someone. You didn't slam the door. You simply stopped standing in the doorway. Stopped waiting for someone to meet you halfway. Stopped believing that loving harder would somehow make them love better. That's the part no one prepares you for. When you leave quietly, the world doesn't change right away. The days still look the same. Your phone still lights up. Your routines still exist. But inside, something has shifted, a subtle return to yourself, a gentle reclaiming of energy you had been leaking for years. And maybe this is the real beginning, not of another relationship, not of another chapter with them, but of a deeper relationship with your own nervous system, your own emotional rhythm, your own need for peace that doesn't require explanation. Because Aquarius, you didn't walk away to be chased, you walked away to breathe. To remember what it feels like to exist without constantly adjusting your shape to fit someone else's expectations. And if you're honest with yourself, the version of you who stayed was already disappearing. The version of you who left is the one slowly coming back. Aquarius, there is a strange moment that comes after you leave. Not the kind that feels dramatic or final, but a quiet, unfamiliar space where nothing is being asked of you anymore. No explanations waiting to be given. No emotional labor scheduled for later. Just a soft, almost uncomfortable stillness. At first, silence can feel empty, like something is missing, like you forgot to bring a part of yourself with you. But if you stay inside it long enough, you begin to notice something subtle. Your breathing slows. Your thoughts stop racing to anticipate someone else's mood. Your nervous system finally gets a chance to stand down from its post. You are so used to being emotionally available, Aquarius. So used to responding, adjusting, translating your feelings into something easier for others to digest. So when you stop doing that, it can feel wrong, like you are being selfish for not filling the space with words, like you owe someone clarity simply because you once gave them access. But silence is not punishment. It is not withdrawal. It is not a tactic. It is the first moment you stop exporting your energy into a connection that stopped nourishing you. There is a difference between being quiet and disappearing. You did not disappear. You simply stopped broadcasting yourself to someone who was no longer listening. You didn't make an announcement. You didn't create a scene. You just let the connection fade into the background where it had already been living for a long time. And here is the part most people never talk about. Silence reveals patterns you couldn't see when you were still talking. You start to notice how often you were the one initiating. How often you were explaining your feelings instead of having them met. How often you were giving emotional context while the other person only consumed the result. In the quiet, your body remembers things your mind kept overriding. The tension in your shoulders, the way your stomach tightened before every difficult conversation, the small ache of waiting for replies that never came with the same depth you sent. This is where healing actually begins, not in conversations, not in closure speeches, but in the absence of emotional noise. In the space where your nervous system finally realizes it does not have to perform anymore. And maybe that is why silence feels so powerful, because it exposes what was real and what was simply habit. It shows you how much of the relationship was built on your effort, your presence, your patience, your willingness to keep holding the emotional center. Let me ask you something gently. When you stopped explaining yourself, did you notice how little there was left to explain? Silence teaches you something about your own value, not in a dramatic way, not in affirmations or mantras, but in the way your energy slowly returns to you, the way your mind starts to feel less crowded, the way your emotional world becomes quieter, but somehow richer. You begin to feel yourself again, not as someone's partner, not as someone's emotional support system, just as a person with thoughts, rhythms, and needs that do not require translation. Aquarius, silence is not about control, it is about sovereignty. It is the moment you stop negotiating your inner peace. The moment you realize you are allowed to exist without constantly narrating your experience for someone else. And in that stillness, something shifts. Not outwardly, not visibly, but deeply. You start to feel a different kind of presence, your own. This is where everything begins to rearrange, not around them, but around you. There is a subtle shift that happens after the quiet settles in. Not in you, in the space around you, in the way the air feels lighter, but somehow more alert, as if the universe itself is waiting to see what will move first. And then, almost unexpectedly, something stirs on the other side. Messages arrive with a different tone, not casual, not relaxed, urgent, but trying to sound calm. Questions that were never asked before suddenly appear, as if they were always there, just buried under comfort. Calls come at hours they never used to care about, not because something new happened, but because something stopped happening. Your presence. What is interesting, Aquarius, is that this moment often feels confusing. Part of you wonders if this means something, if this is proof that you mattered more than you thought. If maybe they finally realized what they had, but look closer, not at the words, at the timing. They did not reach out when you were bending yourself to fit. They did not reach out when you were explaining your feelings for the third time. They did not reach out when you were still emotionally available, still adjusting your needs to keep the connection smooth. They reached out when you stopped moving, not because you were gone, but because they could feel the center of gravity shift. Some people are not afraid of losing you, they are afraid of losing access to you. They are afraid of no longer being able to predict your reactions, no longer being able to rely on your emotional flexibility, no longer having the quiet reassurance that you will always be there to absorb the imbalance. And that is what creates the panic, not grief. Not longing, disorientation. You see, control is rarely loud. It is subtle. It lives in habits, in expectations, in the silent agreement that you will keep showing up, even when it costs you. So, when you stop adjusting, it feels to them like the floor moved, like a familiar structure disappeared without warning, not because you made a dramatic exit, but because you reclaimed your emotional axis. And this is where Aquarius energy becomes dangerous in the most beautiful way. Because once you detach from patterns that no longer honor you, your absence does not feel like emptiness. It feels like a mirror. It reflects back everything that was taken for granted. They start asking questions that reveal more about their fear than their love. Where are you? Are you okay? Did I do something wrong? Why do you feel different? Oh, but notice what is missing. There is rarely a question about how you felt, only about why the system changed. Let me ask you something softly. If they truly saw you, would it have taken your silence for them to finally look? This moment is not about revenge. It is not about being desired again. It is about clarity, because now you can see the difference between being valued and being relied upon, between being loved and being emotionally convenient. And something inside you shifts again, not into pride, not into bitterness, into discernment. You realize that being missed does not always mean being understood, and being wanted does not always mean being cherished. Sometimes it only means your energy was part of someone else's stability. So when they panic, stay gentle with yourself. Do not rush to soothe the imbalance. Do not translate your growth into something smaller so they can digest it. Just stay where you are, rooted, centered, present in your own emotional field, because this is not the story of them losing you. This is the story of you finally meeting yourself without interference. And once you feel that, truly feel it, you will never confuse attention with connection again. And then it arrives, not with fireworks, not with drama, just a soft vibration in your pocket, a name you already trained your nervous system to stop expecting. You do not open it right away, not because you are playing games, but because something in you is finally still. You are not hungry for answers anymore. You are curious in a quiet way, the kind of curiosity that feels like standing on a balcony at night, watching city lights without needing to be part of the noise. When you read the message, it is not romantic. There is no poetry, no desperate confession, just words that sound unfinished, like someone thinking out loud for the first time in years. I have been thinking a lot. I realize things. I never saw it like that before. And that is what makes your chest tighten, not the content, the tone. Because this is not someone trying to impress you. This is someone trying to understand themselves, clumsily, without a script, without certainty. Aquarius, you always knew the difference. You can feel it instantly. The difference between someone wanting you back and someone finally meeting themselves in the mirror you held up for so long. There is a strange tenderness in reading a message that does not ask for anything. No promises, no future plans, no emotional pressure, just awareness arriving late. And maybe that is why it feels heavier than any I love you ever did. Because love can be performative, but awareness is naked. For the first time, they are not speaking from confidence. They are speaking from loss of illusion. From the collapse of the story, they told themselves while you were still adjusting, still explaining, I was still carrying the emotional weight for two people. Now, you are not there to soften it, so they have to feel it fully. And here is the part no one talks about. The message is not meant to change your mind. It is meant to change theirs. You are not the destination of that text. You are the catalyst. That is why it lands differently, because deep down, you know this message would never have existed if you had stayed. It was born from absence, from the space you finally allowed, and something in you recognizes the cosmic irony. You spent so long trying to be understood, only to be understood when you stopped speaking. Isn't that the most Aquarian lesson of all? That sometimes the soul does not need to explain. It needs to disappear just long enough for the truth to echo. You read their words slowly, not searching for meaning. Only just noticing how your body responds. There is no rush in your chest, no urge to fix, no impulse to reassure, only a gentle question floating inside you. Do I feel pulled back, or do I feel witnessed and free at the same time? Because that is the real signal now, not what they say, but what your nervous system does in the presence of their awareness. And here is the quiet miracle. You realize you can hold compassion without sacrificing yourself. You can honor their growth without volunteering to carry it. You are no longer the emotional teacher in the room. You are simply a human who finally gets to choose from wholeness. So, if you reply, it will not be from longing. It will be from clarity. And if you do not reply, it will not be from fear. It will be from peace. Tell me, Aquarius, if someone finally sees the truth you lived for years, but you no longer need to be seen to feel real, what does that say about how far you have already traveled? Because maybe the message was never about reopening a door. Maybe it was just proof that your silence rewrote a story in someone else, while you were busy writing a new one inside yourself. There is something almost cosmic about how understanding arrives, not in the middle of conversations, not during long emotional explanations, but in the quiet aftermath, when the room finally feels different because one presence is no longer shaping the air. Aquarius, you once believed that if you spoke clearly enough, gently enough, patiently enough, something would shift. That awareness could be taught through love, that growth could be invited. But some lessons are not intellectual, they are sensory. They are learned through the nervous system, not the mind. Only when the rhythm of your existence disappeared from their daily life did reality begin to feel real, not as a concept, but as an absence that could be felt in the body, in the silence of mornings, in the missing tone of voice at night, in the subtle disorientation of not knowing where to send thoughts anymore. Loss does what words cannot. It removes the illusion of permanence. As long as you were there, adapting, adjusting, staying kind through your own exhaustion, your presence felt like a constant, not a gift, not a choice, just a background condition of their emotional world. And humans do not value oxygen until the air thins. There is a deeper truth here that few people talk about. Familiarity dulls perception. The brain stops registering what feels guaranteed. What does not create contrast does not create awareness. So, your absence did not punish them. It reintroduced contrast into their reality. It forced the nervous system to recalibrate, to finally notice what had quietly been supporting them all along. Some people do not awaken through dialogue. They awaken through disorientation, through the strange emptiness of a life that still looks the same on the outside, but feels fundamentally different on the inside. That is when reflection begins. Not as a romantic longing, but as a subtle grief for a version of themselves that did not appreciate what was present. And here is the part that matters for you. Their realization is not proof that you should return. It is proof that your silence was honest. It means you did not leave too early. You left exactly when your presence was no longer being perceived as sacred. There is no bitterness in this, only clarity. Growth that requires your disappearance was never meant to be carried by your constant emotional labor. It had to happen in a space where you were no longer buffering the consequences. This is the paradox of Aquarius love. You give people insight into themselves simply by being who you are, but your deepest impact often happens only after you step out of the picture, not because you are dramatic, but because your absence removes the mirror they were unconsciously avoiding. And maybe this is the real healing moment, not for them, for you. Because you finally understand that not all lessons are yours to teach actively. Some are taught by your boundary, by your self-respect, by your willingness to let someone feel the reality they kept postponing. There is a quiet dignity in being the person someone grows from, even if you are no longer the person they grow with. So, let me ask you something gently. If someone only discovers your value when you are no longer available to give it, does that mean you were invisible before? Or does it mean they simply needed to lose the comfort of your presence to finally see clearly? Because sometimes the universe does not separate people to punish anyone. It separates them so that truth can finally arrive without emotional noise. And maybe your absence was not an ending at all. Maybe it was the moment awareness finally had space to breathe. There is a quiet moment you might not even notice at first. Not a dramatic realization, not a big emotional shift. Just a subtle change in how your body holds itself. You wake up one morning and the urgency is gone. The impulse to check your phone has softened. The feeling that something is missing has transformed into something else. Space. Not empty space. Living space. Aquarius, this is how power returns to you. Not through dominance, not through winning, but through the absence of inner tension. You are no longer leaning forward emotionally, no longer waiting for the next signal to tell you how to feel. Your nervous system is no longer outsourced, and that is when you realize something profound. You did not take your power from them, you simply stopped giving it away. Before, your energy moved outward, toward understanding, known toward fixing, toward holding emotional continuity for two people. You called it love, but it was also a form of self-abandonment. Now your energy begins to circulate inward again. You pause before responding, not because you want to appear detached, but because your inner world finally deserves the same attention you once gave to theirs. This is the real shift. You no longer measure your worth by their reactions. You measure your peace by your alignment. There is a different quality in your silence now. It is not withdrawal, it is sovereignty. You are not trying to create distance. You are creating discernment. For the first time, your emotional boundaries feel like home. Not walls, not defenses, just a gentle perimeter that protects your center. and something surprising happens. You stop fantasizing about outcomes. You stop rehearsing conversations that may never happen. You start listening to what your body already knows. That familiar tightness in your chest when something is off. That soft expansion when something feels true. These signals were always there, but they were drowned out by your desire to maintain connection. Now they speak clearly. This is why the power shift feels so quiet, because it does not announce itself. It settles. You are no longer afraid of being left. You are aware of what it costs to stay misaligned, and that changes everything. Love is no longer something you chase. It becomes something that either fits your nervous system or does not. You are no longer available for emotional dynamics that require you to shrink, adapt, or over-explain your intuition. Not out of pride, out of respect for the person you became through healing. This is the kind of power that does not control anyone else. It simply refuses to abandon itself again. You can feel it in the way you breathe now, slower, deeper, as if your body finally trusts that it does not need to perform for connection. And here is the cosmic truth for Aquarius. Your greatest magnetism was never in how much you gave. It is in how fully you return to yourself. Because when you are rooted in your own presence, you no longer need to be chosen. You choose. And the question becomes softer. Not will they come back, but do I feel more myself with them or without them? That is not detachment. That is emotional maturity. That is what it feels like when power stops being about influence and starts being about integrity. And once you taste that kind of inner alignment, you realize something gently irreversible. You are no longer afraid of losing love. You are finally devoted to not losing yourself again. There is a different kind of stillness now, not the silence of absence, but the silence of choice. You notice it in the smallest moments, the way your hand no longer rushes toward the phone, the way a message can sit unopened without creating anxiety in your chest. Time no longer feels like an enemy. It feels like an ally. Aquarius, this is where waiting stops being passive and becomes sacred, because you are not delaying out of fear, you are listening. You are allowing space to reveal truth, not through words, but through consistency, through what continues when the initial emotional wave has passed. There is a quiet intelligence in not responding immediately. It gives reality time to breathe. It lets intentions settle into form. When someone knows you are not instantly available, their inner world has to work harder. They can no longer rely on your emotional presence to regulate themselves. They have to sit with their own thoughts, their own motives, their own discomfort. And that is where real information emerges, not in what they say in the first message, but in what they continue to show when there is no immediate reward. Waiting reveals whether someone is acting from awareness or from anxiety, from growth or from panic. This is not about being distant. It is about being discerning. You are not trying to create mystery. You are allowing time to separate impulse from intention, and time always tells the truth. Real change does not feel dramatic. It feels steady. It does not demand reassurance. It offers presence. You can sense the difference in the energy. One feels rushed, the other feels grounded. One feels like someone trying to regain control. The other feels like someone learning to hold themselves. Aquarius, you have spent so much of your life moving faster emotionally than the people around you, understanding before they were ready, forgiving before they had reflected, explaining before they had asked. Now you are finally letting time do some of the work for you, not to test them, but to protect yourself. Because waiting is not about power over others. It is about loyalty to your own nervous system. You are observing how it feels in your body when they speak, when they act, when days pass without pressure. You are no longer romanticizing potential. You are responding to patterns. This is a different frequency of love, slower, quieter, more honest. It does not rush toward resolution. It waits for coherence. And that waiting teaches you something subtle and beautiful. You no longer need answers to feel secure. You need alignment. You are not asking, will they change? You are feeling, do I feel safe being myself here? That is a radical shift. Because now, even if they disappear, you remain centered, whole. Waiting does not make you smaller. It makes you clearer. It filters out fantasy. It highlights reality. And the longer you allow things to unfold without forcing them, the more your intuition sharpens, the more your body trusts itself again. This is why waiting changes everything. It brings you back into relationship with time. with your breath, with your own rhythm. You stop chasing outcomes. You start honoring process. And somewhere in that gentle space, you realize you are no longer waiting for them to prove anything. You are waiting for yourself to feel settled in the truth. So here's the question I want to leave floating softly inside you. If someone truly changes, will you need them to convince you? Or will their consistency speak so quietly that your nervous system simply recognizes it? Because real change does not beg to be believed. It does not rush you. It does not demand your attention. It arrives slowly and feels like peace. There is a moment that feels almost anticlimactic. No grand decision, no emotional peak, just a quiet awareness settling gently in your chest. You realize the story no longer needs an ending because it already gave you something more important than closure. Aquarius, this is where the journey becomes truly yours, not defined by who stayed or who returned, but by who you became in the space in between. At some point, you stop asking what they are doing. You stop imagining alternate timelines. You stop replaying conversations that never happened. Not because you are numb, but because your inner world feels complete enough. There is a strange peace in noticing that your heart no longer needs a response to feel validated. No message could add anything essential. No apology could repair something that is already transformed. You begin to see the relationship differently, not as something that failed, but as something that fulfilled its purpose. It taught you where you were overgiving, where you were explaining too much, where you were abandoning your own intuition to preserve connection. And that knowledge stays with you, quietly, like a compass you did not know you were building all along. This is the real ending, not reunion, not separation, but integration. You do not go back to the person you were when you first met them. You return to yourself with more honesty than before. You notice how your boundaries feel natural now, how your silence feels spacious instead of heavy, how your standards no longer feel like defenses, but expressions of self-respect. There is no bitterness in this, and only a soft gratitude for the version of you that survived the confusion and chose growth anyway. You understand now that love is not proven by being chosen. It is proven by being aligned, and alignment feels like breathing without effort, like not needing to perform emotional labor to be seen, like being able to exist without shrinking or stretching to fit someone else's expectations. This is what wholeness actually feels like, not constant happiness, but emotional stability, a sense of being anchored inside yourself. You are no longer waiting for anyone to recognize your worth, because your nervous system already knows it. That is the miracle. Not that they finally understood, but that you no longer need to be understood in order to stay connected to yourself. You can still feel tenderness for them, compassion, even love, but it no longer overrides your loyalty to your own emotional truth. You have learned how to be with yourself without distraction, without external mirrors, without needing a narrative to justify your growth. And that changes how every future connection will enter your life. They will not complete you. They will meet you. You will not ask them to save you from loneliness. You will invite them into a life that already feels inhabited. So, when you look back now, the question is no longer, did they come back? It becomes something gentler and far more powerful. Do I feel like myself when I wake up? Do I trust my inner voice again? Do I choose relationships from fullness instead of fear? Because that is the true ending. Not a romantic resolution, but an internal return. You did not win because someone regretted losing you. You won because you stopped needing anyone to choose you in order to feel real. And that kind of ending does not fade. It becomes the beginning of a completely different way of loving, one that starts and stays inside you. And before you close this space, before you return to the noise of the world, let me leave you with something gentle, Aquarius. You did not arrive here by accident. Something in you was already listening long before this message found you. Maybe it felt like curiosity. Maybe it felt like restlessness. Or maybe it felt like a quiet ache you could not name. But the truth is, your soul recognized itself in this story. Because this journey was never really about them. It was about the moment you remembered how to stand inside your own energy again. That is rare, that is powerful, and that deserves to be honored. And so if you feel a little softer right now, a little clearer, a little more present in your body, that is your intuition waking up. That is your nervous system saying, I am safe with myself again. And from this place, everything changes. The people you attract, the choices you tolerate, the timelines you step into. You are no longer chasing signs. You are becoming one. A signal to the universe that says, I choose alignment over attachment, truth over tension, depth over distraction. And here's the part most people never tell you. When you finally stop waiting for the message, you become the message. Your presence becomes the answer. Your peace becomes the proof. Your boundaries become the blessing. So, if this resonated with you, Aquarius, if even one sentence felt like it was written just for you, leave a comment. Not for me. For yourself. Let your future self know that this was the moment you chose awareness over autopilot. And if you want to keep receiving these messages when your soul is ready to hear them, stay with this space. Subscribe, return. Let this be a place you come back to when the world gets loud and you need to remember who you are. Because the journey does not end here. It is only shifting into a deeper frequency. Another message is already forming. Another layer is waiting to unfold. And when it arrives, you will feel it again. That quiet pull, that familiar stillness, that sense of recognition. Until then, trust yourself, protect your energy, and remember, you are not behind. You are right on time.